Hello everyone. In this module, we are going to learn about the text function and the font properties. And following are the topics that we are going to cover. Firstly, we will learn about the setp function. After that, we will see some font properties. In the previous module, we have learned how to add text to the figures. Now we will take it a step further and learn to customize the text property using a function. For this, we will utilize the pyplot module's setp function to modify the text property. Let's take a closer look at what this function does. A setp function is used to set a property on an artist object. As we are using this function to customize the text properties, therefore we pass text properties keyword arguments as an object to the function, and the syntax of this function is matplotlib.pyplot.setp. In the braces we pass object and keyword arguments. So before moving on to the examples, we will see a list of font attributes available in Matplotlib. The first font property is font.family. It has following values: serif, sans serif, cursive, fantasy, monospace, and these are the generic family aliases that are used to specify font families. The next property is font.style. It has values normal, italic, and oblique. Oblique is used when italic is not present, and it is used to set the font style. The next property is font.weight. Its values are normal, bold, and any value between 100 to 900, where 400 stands for normal and 700 stands for bold. And it is the value that will determine how bold or lighter your text is. And the last property is font.size. By default, it has 12 point value, and this property is used to set the default font size of the text. Now we will see some examples related to this. So here is the example in which we try to modify the text family using a function. So firstly, I import the matplotlib pyplot library as plt. After that, I define data point. The first data point is temp and the second data point is elect bill. After that, I call the scatter function to plot a scatter between temp and elect bill. Then I define labels by calling the xlabel function and ylabel function, and I assign xlab to xlabel function and ylab variable to ylabel function. Then I call a title function to add a title to the plot. Next I call setp function to modify the text properties. So in the place of object I pass xlab and ylab in list form, and then I call the font family keyword argument and set it as cursive, and next I call the font size parameter and assign 25 value to it, and in last I call the show function to display the plot. Now I execute this code, and here you see a plot which represents the relation between temperature versus electricity bill by using a scatter function. So you can see that here the x label and the y label, that is temperature in degree and electricity bill, is represented in cursive font family, and the font size is 25. So let's see a next example in which we modify the text style using the function. So here I define data and the labels. For data I assign a variable like rate, and for labels I assign a variable flavor. Next I call the pie function to create a pie chart, and here I pass like rate as x, labels as flavor, and I also pass additional parameter start angle and set its value to 90. Then I call a title function to add a title to the plot, and I assign title variable to it. Then I call the setp function to modify the text properties, and here I pass title as an object and font style as a parameter and set it to italic. I pass other parameters also, the color, and I set its value to blue, and font size also, and set its value to 20. And in last I call the show function to display the plot. Now I execute this code also, and you can see that here the title of the pie chart change its font style to italic, color to blue, and font size to 20. So let's see one more example where we try to modify the text weight. For this, I import libraries NumPy as NP and Matplotlib PyPlot as PLT. After that, I define data coordinates. For X, I use a range function of a NumPy module, and for Y, I use cos function. Then I call the plot function to create line chart between them. Then I call the text function to add a text on a plot. For this, I pass x position as a 2, y position as a 0.75 and string as a cos plot. And I assign text variable to this method. Then I call the setp function to alter the text weight. For this, I pass text as an object, font weight as a keyword argument and assign its value to bold and color as a green. And last, I call the show function to display the plot. Now I execute this code also, and you can see that here the text appear in bold format. Now let's see one more example where we will try to modify text size. For this, I import library Matplotlib PyPlot as PLT. I explain this part of the code later to you. Firstly, I move to the main part. In this main part, I define data coordinates. For this, I take lang as a variable and define different languages to it. And next variable, I take job and define different values to it. And then I call the bar function to create a bar chart. And here I pass lang and job as a parameters. After that, I call the above created function add text and I pass lang and job variable to it as a arguments. Then I call xlabel and ylabel function to add labels at x-axis and the y-axis. It represents that x-axis shows programming languages, y-axis shows number of jobs. Then I call the title function to add a title to the chart, and this plot shows programming languages versus number of jobs. And in last, I call the show function to display the plot. Now I move to the this part of the code. Now let's understand this function. I create a function add text that can add text to the bars. In this function, I use a for loop for the length of a x value, and to calculate the length, I use ln method. After this, I call a text function to add a text on each bar, and I pass I and job of I, which represent height and the string, to print respectively. Then I also pass HA parameter, which is horizontal alignment, and set it to center. I also pass BB box parameter and define dictionary having style box around the text. So in dictionary, I pass face color parameter and set its value to pink. Alpha parameter to set transparency, I set its value to 0.8, and then I call the setp function to customize the text. Here I pass text variable which I assign to text method, and I also pass keyword argument font size and set its value to 8. Now I execute this code, and you can see that here on each bar the values which I define in a job variable are shown, and it also has a box around it, but with the help of setp function the font size of each text is reduced to 8. So with this we conclude that if we want to modify text properties of more than one object, we can easily modify it with the help of setp function. Like in this case, I modify the text property of x label and y label both by passing xlab and ylab variable as an object to setp function. So with this we have learned about text function and font properties, and in the next module we will learn LaTeX formatting.